If you think justice always comes in time, hit subscribe because this case will make you question everything you thought you knew. The first snow of the year had fallen on the quiet town of Ashbury, Oregon, covering everything in a soft white silence. But beneath that stillness there was a noise that refused to fade, the memory of a murder that had haunted this town for 10 years. It started with a phone ringing inside the Ashbury Police Department on a gray Tuesday morning in February. Detective Laura Hendricks was pouring her first coffee when she heard it. The call came from an unlisted number. The voice on the other end trembled, low, urgent, almost mechanical. "You're looking in the wrong place," the caller said. "Check the storage locker behind Miller's quarry." Then the line went dead. No ID, no trace. At first, it sounded like another prank. Cold cases often attracted obsessive locals. But there was something in that voice, something cracked between fear and confession that made Hendricks stop mid-sip. Miller's quarry had been abandoned for years, ever since the 2009 murder of Rebecca Lang, a 27-year-old teacher whose body was found there, partially buried under gravel. The case had gone nowhere. No witnesses, no suspects, just a trail of inconsistencies and a mother who still left flowers at the quarry gate every month. By noon, Hendricks was standing at the edge of Miller's quarry with Detective Neil Pearson, her longtime partner. The wind cut through the valley carrying the smell of rust and pine. Snow crunched under their boots as they pushed through the chain-link fence. "Could be another dead lead," Pearson muttered. "Or the first real one in 10 years, Hendricks replied, shining her flashlight toward the back lot where rusted storage lockers sat like forgotten coffins. One of the locks was new, not rusted like the rest. Hendricks' instincts flared. The padlock was dusty, but the grooves of the keyhole looked freshly scraped. She jotted down the serial and called it in for a warrant. When the lock was finally cut open that evening, what they found wasn't a body, it was a box. Inside it, a single cell phone wrapped in an evidence bag, still labeled with the original case tag from 2009. The same phone that had supposedly been logged and destroyed years ago. Someone had retrieved it and then hidden it. The next day, Hendricks pulled the archived files. She found a log note claiming the phone had no recoverable data. But as she stared at the old handwriting, she noticed something off. The signature on the evidence release form wasn't from anyone in the department. The signature read, N. Pearson. Her eyes froze. Her partner's name. By the time the forensic lab powered up the recovered phone, Hendricks felt the air change around her. The lab tech, a wiry man named Jonas Kim, leaned in close as the screen flickered to life for the first time in a decade. A single voice message auto-played, its timestamp dated 1 day before Rebecca Lang's body was found. "Becky, please don't go there. You don't understand. He's not who you think he is." It was a man's voice, muffled, panicked, and cut off by a crash. When the waveform data finished rendering, Jonas turned pale. "Detective, this voice pattern matches one of your old witness statements. The bar owner, what was his name?" "Cliff Barnes," Hendricks whispered. "He died in a car accident in 2010. But the mystery only deepened. The timestamp on that voicemail was 10 years old, yet the phone had somehow made a call last night. Jonas confirmed it. The same number had dialed the Ashbury police switchboard less than 12 hours ago. A dead man's phone had called the station. That night, Hendricks drove alone to her office, replaying the call over and over in her mind. The echo of the voice felt like it was clawing through time, demanding to be heard. She dug into the phone's metadata. The outgoing signal had bounced through a decommissioned cell tower outside town, one that hadn't been active since 2014. Impossible. Unless someone had spoofed the signal intentionally. At 2:43 a.m., she opened the case photo of Rebecca Lang for the 100th time. The quarry, the gravel, the missing time gaps. She traced the timeline like she was walking through a crime scene. Rebecca's last known location was the Lantern Tavern, where she had been seen arguing with an unidentified man hours before her death. The original statement from the bartender, Cliff Barnes, had claimed Rebecca left alone. But what if he lied? The next morning, Hendricks met with Pearson in the evidence room. The tension was thick. The shelves were lined with forgotten cases, dust, tags, and silence. "You ever see this phone before?" she asked, holding up the bagged evidence. Pearson frowned. "Not that I can recall. Why?" "Because someone used it last night, and according to the file, you signed it out 10 years ago." For a moment the world went still. Pearson's jaw tightened, and a muscle flicked near his temple. "I didn't sign that form, and if someone used my name, they're trying to bury something." Hendricks studied him carefully. For years he'd been her closest ally, the one who'd stood by her through every late-night case and courtroom storm. But now she couldn't ignore the coincidences stacking up: the false signature, the missing logs, the dead man's voicemail. Later that afternoon, a field unit followed up on the quarry lead. The team uncovered tire impressions near the far storage unit, fresh ones. A partial tread matched a department-issued sedan. Pearson's sedan. Hendricks didn't want to believe it, but the trail pointed inward, into the department itself. Someone had kept this case cold for a reason. As the sun set over Ashbury, Hendricks stood again at the quarry's edge, watching the wind whip across the frozen gravel. She could almost hear Rebecca's voice in the wind. Or maybe it was her own conscience whispering, how long had the truth been right here, buried beneath her feet? Then her phone buzzed. An unlisted number. She hesitated before answering. A faint male voice spoke, trembling with fear. "You don't know who you're dealing with, detective. Stop digging, or you'll end up like her." The line went dead. Hendricks stood frozen, the phone pressed against her ear as the last echo of static faded into the cold night. And then, from somewhere deep within the quarry, a metallic sound echoed, like a door slamming shut underground.
Detective Laura Hendricks didn't sleep that night. The warning call replayed in her head on loop. That trembling voice, that last metallic slam echoing from the quarry. By dawn, the frost outside her window had turned to fog, smothering the small town of Ashbury in a dull, suffocating gray. She drove back to the station, every mile feeling heavier than the last. Inside the squad room, the hum of computers and murmured voices felt distant, unreal. On her desk, a sealed envelope waited. No name, no return mark. Inside were 2 photographs. One showed the storage locker at Miller's Quarry, taken from a distance. The second, a grainy image of Detective Neil Pearson, standing there at night, flashlight in hand. On the back, a message written in red marker. "He's not who you think he is." Hendricks' pulse thudded. She went straight to the evidence control logs again, this time pulling a decade's worth of entries related to the Rebecca Lang case. The more she dug, the worse it got. Timestamps that didn't match, sign-outs that couldn't exist, and destroyed exhibits that still appeared in storage. When she cross-checked the access logs, one name kept repeating: Pearson, sometimes in his full signature, sometimes initialed, sometimes typed in as if by someone else's hand. At 10:45 a.m., she found something stranger: a surveillance gap. For 1 week in March 2010, the evidence room camera feed had been erased. The official report cited a hardware failure. That was the same week Rebecca's phone had been recorded as destroyed. Hendricks' next move was dangerous, but necessary. She went to Captain Frank Dwyer, the veteran in charge of internal affairs. Dwyer was an old-school cop, gruff, loyal, the kind who still kept a framed badge from his rookie year. "Captain, I think someone inside this department tampered with evidence in the Lang case." She slided the photographs across his desk. "You're accusing one of your own?" "I'm accusing whoever did this," Hendricks replied. He sighed, leaning back. "You're stepping into something messy, Hendricks. That case went cold for a reason. Pearson's been clean his whole career. You bring this up without proof, you'll burn your badge before you find your truth." But Hendricks had already made up her mind. She didn't need permission. She needed the truth. That night, she drove out to Pearson's property, a modest house on the edge of town surrounded by skeletal pines. The porch light was off, but his car was in the driveway. A faint glow leaked from the basement window. Through the cracked blinds, she saw Pearson hunched over a workbench, not drinking, not resting, but sorting through old case files. Rebecca Lang's file lay open in front of him. He was holding the same phone they'd found in the quarry. Her stomach dropped. She recorded 30 seconds of video on her phone before headlights approached down the road. Hendricks ducked behind a tree as a black SUV pulled into Pearson's drive. Two men stepped out, neither in uniform. One handed Pearson an envelope. The other looked around before disappearing back into the vehicle. When the SUV drove off, Pearson stood motionless at his door, staring into the night like a man cornered by ghosts. The next morning, Hendricks confronted Pearson. "I went by your place. You were meeting with someone, off record." Pearson's face drained of color. "You followed me. I'm trying to understand why your name's all over the Lang evidence trail, why a phone destroyed 10 years ago just called me, why you were at that quarry last night." He slammed his locker shut. "You don't know what you're walking into, Laura. Some of this goes way higher than you think." "Then help me see it," she shot back. He hesitated, then leaned closer. Rebecca Lang wasn't supposed to die. She was an informant, one of ours. The night she was killed, she was about to testify against someone in town hall, someone with power. When the case fell apart, they needed a scapegoat. I buried evidence to keep her family safe." She blinked. "You buried evidence?" "I thought I was protecting people," he said, voice cracking. "But I didn't realize what I'd unleashed." That confession should have brought relief. Instead, it opened a deeper hole. If Pearson had hidden the truth, who had kept the secret alive all these years? Who had made that phone call? Later that day, Hendricks checked Rebecca's old financial records, digging through dusty boxes in the archive. One bank statement stood out. A recurring cash deposit from Ashbury Development Group, a company that had donated heavily to the town council in 2009. She traced the corporate registration. The name on the filing stopped her cold. Frank Dwyer. The captain. That evening, Hendricks met Pearson at a roadside diner off Route 6. Rain hammered the windows as thunder rolled in the distance. She slid the papers across the booth. "You said this went higher. I think I just found out how high." Pearson scanned the documents, eyes widening. Dwyer was supposed to oversee the task force. If he was funneling money into Rebecca's case, he wasn't protecting her, he was silencing her. "Which means," Hendricks said quietly, "he's been covering his tracks ever since." The diner lights flickered as thunder cracked outside. Pearson leaned forward. "You can't confront him yet. We need hard proof, something no one can erase." Then Hendricks' phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She answered. Static hissed. Then the same mechanical voice whispered, "You're too late. He knows." The line cut off. Seconds later, her phone chimed again, this time with a single text message. It was an address. Old Fairview Motel, Room 9. They arrived 20 minutes later, tires hissing on wet asphalt. The motel was half collapsed, the neon sign flickering like a dying heartbeat. Room 9's door hung slightly ajar. Inside, the faint hum of a TV, snow on the screen, and the smell of mold and dust. On the table sat a police evidence box, labeled Rebecca Lang Case. She flipped it open. Inside were photographs, cassette tapes, and a folder stamped Confidential, IA Only. The top photo froze her blood. It was a shot of Captain Dwyer standing beside Rebecca Lang, smiling, hand on her shoulder, dated 1 week before her murder. Pearson stared in silence. He knew her, he whispered. He was there. Then something metallic clicked behind them. Hendricks spun. A figure stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the flashing motel sign. A gun glinted in the man's hand, and as the neon light hit his face, she saw who it was. Captain Dwyer. "Put the files down," he said, calm, almost sad. "You shouldn't have gone digging, Laura. Some things were meant to stay buried." Pearson moved slightly, hand near his holster. "Frank, you killed her, didn't you?" His expression didn't change. "She was going to destroy everything we built. One mistake. One night. And now you're both about to make the same one." For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then Dwyer raised his gun, and the lights went out. A single gunshot echoed in the darkness.
Darkness swallowed the room after the gunshot. Detective Laura Hendricks hit the floor, the smell of gunpowder burning in her lungs. Her ears rang, her pulse drummed like thunder. She reached for her weapon, feeling for movement in the black. A groan, low, pained, came from the corner. "Laura!" It was Neil Pearson. Lightning flashed through the cracked motel window, just long enough to show him slumped against the wall, clutching his shoulder. Blood darkened his sleeve. Captain Dwyer was gone. The back door stood open, wind howling through the rain. Hendricks scrambled to her partner, pressing down on the wound. "He hit you high. You'll live," she said through clenched teeth. Pearson's breathing was shallow but steady. "He took the tapes. The proof." She looked around. The evidence box was half empty. The cassettes that had been inside were missing, along with the envelope marked IA only. Outside, tires screeched. A black SUV vanished into the storm. Back at the station, chaos reigned. Hendricks filed an immediate internal alert, but Dwyer's badge access had already been wiped from the system. He was off the grid. The department split down the middle. Half refused to believe the captain was dirty. The other half whispered that they'd seen the signs all along. Hendricks didn't care. She had one job: bring him in alive and expose everything. By dawn, Pearson was in surgery, and Hendricks sat in her car, engine idling outside the hospital. The city looked smaller in the gray light, fragile, almost unaware of the storm brewing beneath it. Then her phone vibrated. A message. "You want the truth? Come alone." Attached, a location pin. Miller's Quarry. The wind howled across the quarry like a warning. Snow drifted over the cracked earth, and the sun was just a pale shimmer behind the clouds. Hendricks parked her car by the fence and stepped into the silence, gun drawn. A single figure stood near the edge of the pit, coat flapping in the wind. Captain Frank Dwyer. He didn't turn around when she approached. "You shouldn't have come alone." His voice was rough, calm, the voice of a man who had stopped running a long time ago. "I didn't have a choice," Hendricks said. "You killed Rebecca Lang." Dwyer exhaled. "She was working with us. She was supposed to feed me names. Corrupt council members, developers laundering money through the Ashbury project. But she found out it went deeper, and I panicked. I thought I was saving the department. Instead, I destroyed it." He turned to face her, eyes hollow. "You think I wanted this? Every year I left those flowers at the quarry myself. I couldn't stop hearing her voice. Then why the phone call? Why bring me back into this?" Dwyer smiled faintly, like a man who'd made peace with his own ghosts. "I didn't call you." Before Hendricks could respond, another sound cut through the wind, the crackle of a radio transmitter. Dwyer looked down. A small device lay on the ground near his boots, its green light blinking. Someone else was on the channel. A voice came through, distorted but unmistakable.
"You shouldn't have let her dig, Frank. Now you forced my hand." Hendricks' blood ran cold. That voice, the same one from the mysterious phone calls. Dwyer's face tightened. "That's impossible," he whispered. "He's dead." "Who?" Hendricks demanded. He didn't answer. Instead, headlights appeared at the top ridge of the quarry. Another vehicle. It stopped, engine rumbling. A door slammed. Out stepped a man Hendricks had only seen once before, in the old case file photos. Cliff Barnes, the bartender, the supposed dead witness. Barnes descended the slope slowly, rain slicking his coat. He looked older now, his face carved by time, but the coldness in his eyes hadn't faded. "You were supposed to stay quiet, Frank, but you couldn't resist the guilt, could you?" Hendricks aimed her gun. "You faked your death?" Barnes smiled thinly. "They needed someone dead to close the file. Dwyer helped me disappear. In exchange, I kept the council's secrets and made sure no one ever reopened Rebecca's case." He turned toward Dwyer. "But now she's ruined it. You should have killed her when you had the chance." Dwyer stepped forward. "I'm done protecting you." For a moment, the quarry was silent except for the wind. Then Barnes pulled his weapon. 2 shots echoed. One hit the gravel near Hendricks. The other found Dwyer. He fell, collapsing against the rocks. Hendricks dropped to her knees beside him, pressing down on the wound. "Stay with me, Frank." Dwyer's hand trembled as he handed her something. A small cassette tape wrapped in plastic. "Play it when it's over," he whispered. Then his hand went still. Barnes started up the slope toward his car. Hendricks grabbed her gun and fired once. A single, echoing crack through the fog. The shot hit the ground inches from his feet. He froze, hands up. "It's over," she said, her voice shaking. Barnes turned, his eyes calm, almost amused. "It's never over, Detective. You'll see." Hours later, the quarry was swarming with police. Barnes was taken into custody, expression blank, as if the weight of his own lies had turned him to stone. Dwyer was pronounced dead on scene. Hendricks stood at the edge of the pit, watching the sun finally break through the clouds. 10 years. One call, one truth buried too long. Back at headquarters, she sat alone in the evidence room, staring at the cassette Dwyer had given her. It was labeled simply, "Rebecca, Final Statement." She slipped it into an old player. The tape hissed, then crackled to life. Rebecca Lang's voice filled the room, calm, trembling, determined. "If you're hearing this, I didn't make it, but the truth matters. It always does. They think they can bury people like me, but one day, someone will find this, someone who still believes in justice." The recording ended. Silence. Then Hendricks noticed something else, faint, buried beneath Rebecca's voice, a secondary whisper in the background. She replayed it, amplified the sound. A man's voice, low, distorted, speaking just behind her. She was right. Justice always calls back. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She froze, staring at the screen as it vibrated across the desk. The caller ID read, Rebecca Lang. The ringing continued, echoing through the empty precinct like a ghost in the wires. Hendricks reached out, her hand trembling, but stopped just before answering. The phone went silent, then one final notification appeared. Voicemail received, 12:09 a.m. She pressed play. Nothing but static. Then a single distorted breath. "Thank you." Outside, the snow began to fall again over Ashbury. The case was closed, but some mysteries, Hendricks knew, don't end with an arrest. They echo, waiting for someone new to listen. She turned off the lights, locked her office, and walked into the cold morning air. The town looked peaceful again, as if justice had finally come home. But deep beneath the quarry, hidden behind rusted steel and stone, a faint red light blinked. A phone still powered on, waiting for the next call.
They thought the killer was gone, but sometimes the truth never dies. If you think this story was intense, wait until you hear the next one. Hit subscribe before the next case goes cold.